too as it weakens, making landfall. But some of the damage has been extensive. We're getting reports now from Okaloosa County. The storm surge there 15 feet. The water breaching Highway 98. If you're familiar with the area, Highway 98 paralleling the coast. Water over the highway. Extensive damage to structures, piers, and vessels, including boats. That would include the Fort Walton area and the Destin area. A little prettier picture in the Pensacola area. Preliminary reports there indicate damage to be relatively light, mostly confined to uprooted trees. In Mobile County, the EMA reported quite a few trees down in the county. In addition, the Saraland Fire Station has been unroofed and several stores and windows have been blown out. Take a look at the satellite photography, the latest on Hurricane Opal, and you can see still a pretty good ball of red. That's the convection, the showers and thunderstorms, and is rolling through south central Alabama, putting down tornadoes, torrential rainfalls. About an hour ago in Ozark, Alabama, a wind gust of 98 miles an hour. In Montgomery, we're getting wind gusts now to 64 miles an hour. Watch out points north, especially metro Atlanta. A little later on this evening, it could be a real serious situation with trees coming down and serious flooding. Already flash flood warnings for a good deal of northern and northwest Georgia. Our Weather Channel's Bill Keneally has been following the hurricane all day long. He's been sitting pretty tight in Pensacola, Florida. The worst is over with, Bill. What's the situation there this evening as far as the weather?
Okay, Mike, our wind has definitely shifted. We've been looking at a very strong northeast wind with our hurricane still offshore. Once Hurricane Opal, though, passed to our southeast as it did pass over Pensacola Beach, our wind, it didn't really shift that abruptly, but it has come around, and we're now about 180 degrees off of where we were earlier. We've gone from northeast all the way around to about a westerly direction. The rain, by the way, Mike, has hung on. We had a break there for a couple of hours, and believe it or not, I know it's October, but actually it's a little bit cool behind this hurricane.
Okay, Bill, now earlier today we had a lot of wind and rain. Tell us how far you are from the coast and what kind of damage are you seeing in your area, because we've heard basically in Pensacola damage so far has been relatively on the light side.
Okay, Mike, as you can see, we can't see anything actually. It's very, very dark around here. Although, looking back to my south, I can see the glow of the city lights, and one of our crews was down there, and they said there's a fair amount of power in the downtown Pensacola area. And incidentally, you asked where we are relative to the coast. We are about 12 miles north of the coast, and once again, it took us a long time to get up here today, courtesy of the traffic late this morning.
Now, Bill, there is a curfew in effect for Mobile County from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Any curfew in effect there in Escambia County and in Pensacola?
I wondered about that. We had heard that earlier, Mike, that it was going to be a dusk to dawn curfew. However, our crew that was downtown, they said there is an awful lot of traffic out there on the road. There's an awful lot of people milling about, inspecting damage, inspecting their property.
Okay, Bill, so it looks like Escambia doing okay, but areas to the east getting the brunt of Opal's wrath as it moved on shore several hours ago. Stay with us, Bill. We'll be back with you live later on this evening here on the Weather Channel. Back here in the Forecast Center in Atlanta, we want to give you the latest on Opal from the National Hurricane Center, and these are the latest numbers just a few minutes ago. Take a look, and the winds now, sustained winds, are at 100 miles an hour, so it's dropped from a Category 4 earlier today. Boy, it was looking like a Camille, but fortunately it weakened to a Category 3 when it made landfall. Winds now at 100 miles an hour, but it's still racing off to the north-northeast at 22 miles an hour, 70 miles south of Montgomery if you're plotting at home, 31.3 north, 86.7 west. Now, once a hurricane moves away from the water, it loses its energy source. Also, you've got a lot of trees and buildings, and that creates a lot of friction, and that kind of tears at the storm, and the winds weaken, but there's still a lot of rainfall to fall, and we still have the problem with tornadoes. Hurricane warnings are up for now. Some of these will probably be dropped later on this evening, along with the tropical storm watches around the mouth of the Mississippi, and those of you in Tampa, St. Pete, still under a tropical storm warning. Tornado watches, the big problem, we've got several out. One for the eye wall, that includes a good deal of Alabama, southwestern Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle, and a watch covering a large area of the Florida Panhandle, rather the Florida Peninsula. Both of these watches continue up until 1 a.m. Eastern Time or midnight Central. Here comes Opal on shore, making landfall in Okaloosa County. peak wind gust 144 miles an hour. That created that 15-foot wall of water, that storm surge, and as I mentioned earlier, extensive damage now in Okaloosa County. That would be the Fort Walton, Destin Beach areas. Now all this rain has got to go somewhere, and it's going north and northeast towards Atlanta, Knoxville, and right up through the Ohio Valley. Some of this rain here will be pounding those of you in the northeast in a couple of days. But I want to show you a couple of areas which are in real harm's way. See these bright colors right here? These bright colors is where we have the problem right now with the possible tornadoes. Butler County, Covington County, and Crenshaw County, you're under tornado warning until 8:45 for another few minutes, and these tornado warnings may be extended farther to the north because we've had wind gusts around the Dothan area, Ozark, Alabama, nearly 100 miles an hour. We expand out, and you can see the big slug of moisture, some pretty serious rain bands now heading through the Atlanta metro area right in here. We've had reports of flooding on Peachtree Creek, and then we've got to watch out for this area to the south. All of this is going to be moving up like this. So if you're in Atlanta, Chattanooga, Rome, Georgia, along I-20 between Atlanta and Birmingham, a very dangerous situation later on tonight. Good idea now, if you can get out there, tie down the trash cans, bring anything that can blow around in, because wind gusts could easily exceed 70 miles an hour in the Atlanta metro area. And the other story is in the Florida area, which didn't get the brunt of it, the peninsula. See these storm bands moving from around Naples all the way up towards Orlando and Osceola in Orange County. These storm bands could contain some twisters, although they usually touch down pretty quickly with a hurricane. We're going to be watching the peninsula for additional twisters overnight tonight. And again, the real problem will be the twisters and the downpours, the flood-provoking rains. Stay with the Weather Channel. You'll get the red screens if you're on cable. You'll get your flash flood warnings and any possible severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings. And we'll have more live coverage with Bill Keneally from Pensacola coming up in about 25 minutes. Now for the rest of the current weather coast to coast and your weekend forecast, here's Janetta Jones.
All right, thanks, Mike. We do have a few other things going on across the country. Obviously, Opal and the frontal boundary along the eastern seaboard. But what is this? This is another system that has moved on through the Rockies and into the plains. It's got some very gusty winds in association with it. We also have some pretty heavy downpours in the Dakotas and parts of New Mexico.
Even though Hurricane Opal continues to work its way inland and weaken, folks all along the Gulf Coast region are still dealing with the effects of this hurricane. Good evening, I'm Terry Smith here at the Forecast Center as we continue to monitor the situation. And we want to start off first with letting you know that there are still some flooding concerns from Texas all the way to Florida along the coast, even though the hurricane has worked its way on into Alabama now. Let's go ahead and show you our satellite picture. And the majority of the convection, the heavy thunderstorms, has already worked its way on into primarily southern and central Alabama and parts of southwestern Georgia. And most of Florida is beginning to clear out, but we're still seeing some heavy rain. We're still seeing reports of some very gusty winds in the area. Valparaiso, Florida, still reporting near 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts with this hurricane. Now, as we show you the latest radar, you can see some of the heavier rains here. And believe it or not, that's near Opal, Alabama, just to the northwest of Dothan. The showers are moving in a counterclockwise fashion around the center of low pressure, which is somewhere right around that area. And our own Bill Keneally is down here in the Pensacola area, and things there have improved somewhat, but they're still experiencing some of the rain and some of the gusty winds, heavy rains associated with that. We have on the line Hank Christian, who is the Director of Emergency Services in Okaloosa County, and that is one area that apparently probably took the brunt of the hurricane's force. And Hank, what can you tell us about the situation in Okaloosa County tonight?
The winds have finally died down. We received Category 3 storm winds. We got some reports from Hurlburt Air Force Base of gusts of 144 miles an hour and sustained of 125. And some early damage figures are coming in, and it's the damage pattern that you would expect with a Category 3 storm. The crucial issue for us was the 10 to 15-foot storm surge that has caused severe damage in the coastal areas of Destin and Okaloosa Island. We got heavy marine damage with boats literally in the middle of the roads. Of course, major power outages, and we have indications that the waves were literally coming over Highway 98 and inundating the hotels and condominiums with 10-foot seas.
Hank, we know that Okaloosa County was under a mandatory evacuation right along the coastal areas, but have you heard any reports of any injuries in that county?
We have confirmed one fatality in the Crestview area, and that was from a tornado touchdown that occurred late this afternoon, actually before the onset of hurricane-force winds. This was a 76-year-old female that was in a single-family frame home, and the house was totally destroyed. That same tornado, we think, damaged approximately 30 to 35 structures before the hurricane. Now, right now, we're in a search and rescue mode. Power is out, so there's total darkness, and we're trying to catch up on the 911 calls that have been holding throughout the storm and to do an immediate assessment for search and rescue. So we won't be able to do an accurate damage assessment until daylight, and we expect to find very severe damage.
Well, Hank, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to give us that report, and we wish you the best of luck in getting things underway there and back on the road to recovery in Okaloosa County. Now let's go to our own Bill Keneally, who has been very persistent in keeping us abreast of the situation in Pensacola. And even though the hurricane has passed to the north of Bill, we're still dealing with the heavy rains and the gusty winds there, Bill.
That is right, Terry. We have a lot of wind. We don't have a whole lot of rain right now. Thankfully, the rain is over with, but the winds are still gusting, I'd say, at times 40 to 45 miles per hour. And regarding the rain, it seems like we've had a rather nasty byproduct of the hurricane in the last half hour. Here at the school, a girl was leaving, and she was bitten by a snake.
Oh, my goodness.
And unfortunately, she was taken off to the hospital just in the past 30 minutes, and it happened about 15 feet behind me, so if I start dancing, you'll know the reason.
I hope you have your snake repellent kit with you. Curfew, in order to help folks with the recovery process tonight. I understand that there's a curfew tonight.
That is correct. We've just heard about that. There's a curfew here in Escambia County. Supposedly only folks that are emergency personnel or folks in an emergency are allowed out in the streets. I'm not sure where we fall within that category or categories.
And also tomorrow you're anticipating that they're going to have to do a lot of inspection of the bridges to assess the damage?
That is right, Terry. They're not going to allow anybody on the bridges until they do inspect them for their integrity and see what they can withstand. That includes the 3-mile Pensacola Bay Bridge as well as the Bob Sykes Bridge. Okay, I want to show you some folks the pictures from earlier today. And once again, these were shot. A lot of flooding, as you can see. These are pictures just in here at the Weather Channel. Quite a bit of flooding. You see the Builder Square parking lot, very serious flooding. We've had reports of a tremendous amount of flooding around the main police station downtown as well. And that is on the mainland. The reports trickling in from the barrier island are not good whatsoever. If you watched us earlier today, we were shooting a pier in our background. We hear that pier is no longer with us. Terry?
Bill, I hear there is extensive damage along the coast, and we'll have a better idea from you tomorrow and also from the emergency directors as they have a chance to get out and inspect the situation. Thanks for your report tonight, and we'll talk to you later. Now, let's go ahead and update you on the latest with Opal. It does continue to move further inland and weaken. I guess that's good news. Let's show you the latest statistics as of 9 o'clock tonight, and you can see that the center of the storm now is 35 miles south of Montgomery, Alabama, with winds weakening rapidly. 100-mile-an-hour sustained winds reported as it moves north-northeast at 22 miles per hour. Storm surge is still a concern as tides are expected to remain higher than normal. Obviously, though, the worst is over. over in that regard, and that is good news. The worst is not over, however, in regards to the heavy rains. The heavy rains and the gusty winds inland are going to be our main concerns, and that's not just going to be the southeast. That's going to be all the way up into the Ohio Valley region. So we'll continue to keep you posted in that regard. In the meantime, well, let's go ahead back to the studio, find out what else is happening around the country and how the forecast shapes up with Dave Schwartz.
Oh, I thank you so much, Terry. Before we get out of the tropics, though, this hot off the presses here. Tropical depression forms far from land over eastern tropical Atlantic. We've got a new tropical depression out there. It's still ways away from the Caribbean, ways away from the United States, but it's forecast to become a tropical storm tomorrow. We can't put our guard down yet. Holy smokes. Look at this. Still a hurricane over southern Alabama. You've heard the story about the overwash and the flooding and the 7 inches of rain in Atlanta. More tonight, the tornado watches. Well, some of this moisture now will continue to head northward along this frontal boundary. So it's dry in Pittsburgh for now, but tomorrow we're painting green everywhere. It's going to have a great impact on the weather along the East Coast over the next at least 2 days before skies begin to clear out. And we see the back edge of the clouds now west of St. Louis, west of Little Rock, Arkansas. Gorgeous day for you in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. Some of this drier air is heading eastward. This hurricane is heading northward. It'll become a tropical storm here, or thus saith the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida. Notice there's a hole in our little icon that indicates tropical storm status. These things weaken as they move over land. They get out of touch with their life's blood, which is the warm water. Water temperature above 80 degrees seems to be the threshold for tropical systems. So this is way far away from the Gulf of Mexico, so we'll continue to weaken it. And as a matter of fact, by Thursday afternoon, you'll notice that this little icon changes into a little L. Same kind of L as this. That's a tropical low. That means that the Hurricane Center believes that the maximum winds here, sustained winds, will have dropped below tropical storm status, or below 39 miles per hour. That's great news, but still we'll be stuck with the flooding right along the track of our hurricane slash tropical storm slash tropical low. Rain, showers, New York City, better chance in the mountains, Catskills, Adirondacks, Appalachians, Alleghenies here, down through the Smoky Mountains, more flooding. Then here comes our next storm moving out of the plains here tonight. Cold air in behind that, at least for low temperatures, but daytime highs not too shabby. Denver, Colorado, 50s, then we'll warm up to the 60s here on Friday, and the